How's it going, everybody? This is V, the Crusade. We are going through a crisis unlike before. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, I highly suggest y'all guys check them out. I cover a variety of topics on the subject matter. Now, speaking of crisis, we seem to live under this umbrella, this two-party system, and that's where the issue starts. Let me take you back to my time. So, most of y'all don't know me, but I grew up in a family that is mostly conservative. I would say there's probably one or two moderate, but my family was mostly predominantly conservative and voted conservative candidates. Now, at the same time, however, I was surrounded by families who are nationalists. And by nationalists, I mean ethno-nationalists. Now, you already know the topic of this video, judging by the title. I'm going to cover ethno-nationalism versus civic nationalism. Now, the problem is, remember the time when we the people, conservatives, we thought Donald Trump was going to take over this mantle of this restoration, the national restoration that I thought that many others have felt when he won and became president back in 2016. It was everyone's high hope, and I had the hope that he would do what he promised, that he would serve the people, serve us, the Americans. That's not true, guys. That never happened. And I knew there were some red flags. I believe most people were wishful thinking. They were wanting this to happen. It's like we're putting ourselves in a jar and hoping that within this limbo, this paradigm, if you will, which I'll explain, we would succeed and we would conquer and win back our nation, our people. But that is not the case. This two-party system is essentially a paradigm, a paradoxical paradigm. Two sides of the same coin, two sides of the same evil. The left and right party that we now know, the liberals and the conservatives, the Democrats and the Republicans, that all originated from the French Revolution. Now, during that time, there was a court, a States General, which essentially has people from different groups, from different levels of power. You have the clergymen, you have the nobilities, you have the royal family, if you will. They were on the top, and then, of course, the very bottom class are the peasants. So on the left, you have the peasants, which make up the most population, the percent, and then you have the right, who are the clergymen, the nobles, and that's where we get our left and right sentiment, and it kind of stems into our modern society. But to have this mentality is essentially allowing the elites, the people in power, the oligarchs, to take over us, to take over our minds, our weakness. What they do, essentially, like Trump, I'm going to go back to him, is they take the things that you care, your values, say, saving your people, saving your nation from foreigners, and then they will do something about it, and then they'll just brush it off and then pretend that they've done what is right, done what you wanted, done what you expected from this candidate. But the problem is, they're really sliding things under the rug. They're using you like a pawn, putting you under this spotlight, this pedestal, and then making you an example, making you out of an example to show others that yes, you are just a pawn, but not in a very direct way. And that's how they get into the minds of people, in this very subconscious way. And we need to be careful about it because all they want is power. I kind of knew the red flags when Trump, a businessman, is getting into power, is becoming the president. Man, that was insane. And I kind of knew, I had some criticisms on that because obviously, of course, I would never vote for liberals. I would never vote for a Democrat, but needless to say, Trump is a populist. He's a Democrat. He was a Democrat in the 90s, and I still believe that he is. And he's essentially a businessman. He has a lot of towers. He conducts his business in New York. So those are the red flags, and I kind of knew from a business perspective that he's just there to rip off people, to rip off you Americans, okay, you and I Americans, to use our taxpayer money to fund these wars, so to essentially make these people profiteer, to help them make money through these means. And that's how they get to you is, well, I'm going to deport these illegal aliens. Oh, I'm going to build this wall to secure our borders. These are the kinds of ways that politicians get into you, to take your interests and to make you fall for it. And there is really no left versus right, which is essentially them LARPing, taking advantage of you, taking advantage of what you truly care, your ethno, your ethnicity, your kinship, your identity. They want to take away your identity so they can replace it with their own. And that's how they can make money off of your pockets. Constantly talk about ethnicity. If you haven't seen my previous videos on nationalism about defending your own identity as a white person, please check that out, okay? I cover extensively and cohesively on the topic because this is a very important subject on our own turf. We are essentially fighting and defending in the front lines against these threats, these people in power. And we need to rise up and get into power to be able to restore who we truly are. So, the civic nationalism, what is that? Well, the definition of civic nationalism is the legal process of making a person who's an outsider, so not an in-group but an out-group, okay? These people, making them become citizens, become these identities of the country they're in of. For example, people who go to France, they're not French, but then there's a process of giving them that nationality, and it doesn't make any sense. This is more of an idea, more like a political weaponization of giving more voter numbers to politicians. So now you have these immigrants, these non-whites coming into your country, and they're voting for the president, the prime minister, the person in power, in charge, their seats, their position, so they can maintain that position. That's essentially what it is. That's the whole point, the whole process, the whole idea and purpose of having civic nationalism. It's essentially to keep people in power, maintain power, so that they can rip you off even more. And they keep promising Americans, oh, we're going to make our nation great by fighting Israel? Seriously? Cannot a single person think through it and just use their brains, use their not their digital, but their brain cells, like every single neuron firing in their brains? Just think about it again. It doesn't take a rocket science, it doesn't take a 3-year-old to realize that this is totally absurd. We are fighting for another country, not for our country. And that's the problem. And that's something they don't want you to think. So we need to be critical about that. We need to be critical about what is going on. Why this whole civic nationalism? When you say, oh, you're German, does that mean you're somebody who signed these papers off and you're German? Or you're German because it's by blood, it's through kinship, it's through homogeneity, okay? So there's this movie that I used to watch, that I grew up watching when I was a kid. But there's this movie called They Live by John Carpenter. And the movie's premise is about this person who found a pair of glasses, which she's able to see the truth, the reality that surrounds him. That no longer is he bounded by what politicians and those elitists, if you will, no longer can these people in power promote their ideal reality towards him and those who wear this pair of shades, but now they can see the truth. They finally can see how elites see. Know that, yes, your people are being taken over by a group of aliens, and that's what the movie is about. But the takeaway from that is we need to be like that. We need to take a step back, be critical. If a politician promise that he or she's going to do this, why? What is her identity? And we need to know our identity too. Because if we don't stand for our heritage, our own people, our belonging, then they will. Then they will step in. They will take that away from us. And that's scary. That's a scary thought. One of these days, you may run into a person whose last name is Henderson or Smith. But then when you meet that person, it's probably a non-white person. It may be a Jamaican or a black person or some South American migrant. So again, keep that in mind. Who are we fighting for? Is it really a left versus right thing, or is it really a national thing? So I just want y'all guys to take away from that and be mindful. And again, I'm the Socratic type, so a lot of times when I see in the news, somebody is making these promises, I'm always skeptical because I always know that there's something more to it than what is being said. And that's the thing that we need to do, is not be pawns to these elites, not be puppets to those in power, to the oligarchs, but rather be our own people, be our own defense, create our own groups. If you haven't done that, that's a great way to start. I suggest most of my friends that I know who are also white to create their own group and kind of collectivize with them. So when I talk about these problems, it's like, yeah, we're all in this together. We're like a team. And the more y'all guys do that, which I highly encourage y'all to do, the less the politicians and the people in power can really do anything to us. So that's pretty much about it in terms of ethno-nationalism, which is the focal point on our ethnicity, which is by blood, versus civic nationalism. So yeah, that's it. And I will also lastly conclude this video by saying that we need to be vigilant and careful about our surroundings. The people we talk to, who are they? What are they? Why are they doing what they're doing? And by having direct observation of our surroundings, we can be mindful and vigilant people. I hope you like this video, and if you haven't seen my previous videos, I highly suggest y'all guys check them out and stay tuned for more content. Peace.